Welcome, everybody. It is Wednesday morning at 11 o'clock Central, and I'm Dr. John Sherk, and that means this is Brown Bag Lunch, where I give you tips and tricks and other manner of assistance in getting the talent that you need and building the culture that makes people want to stay. So, because I work primarily with contractors, especially air conditioning companies, I've put together a model that I'm going to build around the next year with my podcast. What does it take for a technician to be happy? Now, as I go into this today, I want to emphasize one thing. I tell this to all of my clients. If you want to do more than just pay your technicians, you care about your culture. You want there to be an environment that that makes them want to stay around. I've told the story on this channel before about in my dissertation how I demonstrated that you can compete for talent with culture and not only wages. And so the point here, I will say, is I give you these 7 things that are at least my current model. I want this to evolve over time, but my current model for what makes a great life for a technician. Keep in mind that as an owner or manager, your biggest impact on technicians in this zone we're talking about here, is going to come from things that they want, and you're helping them get it, not things you do for them directly. Here's an example. Let's say you take 2 techs. One tech, you say, we're going to give you $1,500 a year on a tool budget. You just get it, buy the tools, they're your tools, God bless you, right? Now the tech would be like, that's great, thank you, okay? Tech B comes to you and says, I want to eliminate all personal debt. So will you align with me and help me eliminate all of my personal debt, book me for overtime, book me for on-call duties? Obviously I got to pay the bill at my end, but will you align with me to help me accomplish this, right? Tech number 2 is going to experience a much more profound impact on his life than tech number 1. And when you're working with tech number 2, the thing is, you can kind of develop a program where you support someone doing this. We could do another thing that's similar with their physical health. There's other things that this applies to, but just know that the most important, most impactful things you can do, you can't do 100% of it for them, and just be comfortable with that. All right. But if you position yourself as being able to align with things that are a big deal to them, and they're the one doing the majority of it, but you're their booster rocket, you're going to have a much better outcome on your culture than if you position yourself like a parent delivering something to somebody who's just sitting there receiving. It trains the wrong thing. Okay. Now, with that in mind, here are the 7 areas, things that need to be prioritized in the life of a technician in order to be happy. Number 1 is introducing more proactivity into their daily life. There's a classic motivational theory called self-determination theory that says there are 3 components of being motivated. 1 is choosing what you're doing. The second component is having great relationships around you. And the third component is being good at what you're doing. If you combine those 3 things, you're going to get a motivated person. And the challenge there, you can be choosing what you're doing in a few ways, but in many ways, guys, not that many guys become air conditioning technicians because it's what they dreamed to be. They sort of found it, and now they're doing it. And on the day-to-day level, a lot of technicians go from call to call to call, not even knowing where the next call is going to be, and they're not making a lot of choices throughout the day, and it diminishes their level of happiness. Now, there's a much more extended conversation about this, but for now, reintroducing or finding ways to bring proactivity in between the stimulus and response of the life of a normal technician is a component of their happiness. Number 2, learning to communicate with extreme clarity. In my research and in my experience, roughly 85% of all technicians are introverted. And the context that they work in drives that introversion, right? You're alone in a truck most of the day. There's just the nature of the job encourages introversion. in many ways. The problem is that in order to be happy, you have to be able to communicate to people around you what you want and negotiate with them, right? So now the way that you'll feel this issue with a technician is they didn't talk clearly enough with a customer, or they're not telling you something that's going on in the field. But in general, the same dynamic travels with them when they go home. And so technicians learning how to communicate with extreme clarity, understanding the difference between the statement, it's 90 degrees outside and it's hot outside. That there's how do you bring clarity with data into conversation? So that's the second thing they need: proactivity, communicating with clarity. And then the third thing that they need, again, this is from observation, they need to prioritize valuing professionalism and having a career. So because of the way most technicians get into the air conditioning business, it begins as an opportunity for a job that pays a livable wage. But then it becomes a question of, if I'm going to keep doing this, what does that look like to have a career? What does it look like to be professional? And they have to have a model for what that looks like. Usually when we talk about professionalism, we're talking about, did you iron your shirt or did you swear in front of a customer? What I'm really saying is, does that technician have a sense of their life over the next 10 or 20 years? What are the key thresholds? In commercial air conditioning maintenance, textbook, count on it, bank on it. You'll have up and coming techs who want to get experience working on chillers. Standard, absolutely standard. Well, how does that transition happen, right? You can't just take a guy and just send him out to work on a chiller. And then there's components to that, so that the professionalism and the career orientation drives certain choices and certain behaviors, and that in response makes that technician happier over time. All right. Now, I realize these are a little bit abstract, but if you track with me, these are foundational issues. So proactivity, communicating with extreme clarity, valuing professionalism and having a career. And inside of that is also the dynamic of personal growth, personal development, learning over time that's embedded inside that concept. Fourth is financial wellness, right? The technicians need to have some way of prioritizing eliminating personal debt. I would encourage any employer to, get familiar with one of the eliminate personal debt programs and create some kind of partnered version of it, or something that you're encouraging your technicians to engage in, and that you're supporting them if they want to take the steps to eliminate personal debt. And along with that, this kind of ties with the career long-term mindset, that they're putting away proper money for investment, for retirement, and so on, so that they're not living at all in a space, for sure, where they're not sure if they can pay the rent this month, but that they feel like time is on their side, meaning that every month a little more goes in the bank. Every month things get a little sunnier financially. Things happen sometimes, but that they're on that track. That has to be tended to in order for a technician to have an optimal, happy life. Number 5 is physical wellness. I'm making a personal investment here myself in my own wellness, so it's a familiar and warm topic for me. But technicians live very unique lives physically, right? So what does it mean for a technician who's about to turn 50? What does physical fitness look like? Well, it has a lot to do with balance and stability. I don't care how fast that guy can run a mile. I don't want him to fall off a ladder, right? There's load carry kind of physical fitness levels. So whatever that looks like, it's going to involve the three bigs: proper nutrition, sleep, exercise, and also stress management. So that there's more here than I can do in this video, but physical wellness is a core component of a tech's happiness. Number 6 are great relationships. Great relationships at work, with friends, and at home, right? Few things will drain a technician's happiness faster than crappy relationships, both at work and at home, okay? And so their skills have to be developed there. Negotiation, if tech comes home and there's an immediate I'm so glad you're home. I need you to do 5 things. And it feels bad to them when that happens. They need to know how to negotiate. There's the communication piece here, but however you get there, they also have to have great relationships around them. And then lastly, they need respect for themselves and status from others. As time goes on, there's kind of a set of thresholds for a tech to be happy. The first ones are financial, like the basic needs are met immediately, then basic needs are met over time. I'm confident they're going away. Then relationships become important. Then status becomes important. And I talk to a lot of technicians and owners. I can tell you right now, if you have a technician who's been working for you between 5 and 10 years, they're wanting to know if you respect them, right? There's a community, and they're not going to come ask you that most of the time. Sometimes they will. Maybe if something ticks them off, they'll be like, they'll come at you that way. But you and your culture, you need to find a way to communicate status to experienced technicians who are still out there catching calls, because you guys know the dynamic. You get a guy who's been with you 10 years, he's the one you can trust, and so you overuse the phone call to him to solve a problem in the field after hours, right? And then that communicates in your mind. You're saying, you're my best guy. Doesn't that mean something to you? And he's saying back to you, yeah, it means that I maybe should look for a different job because I don't like this. Okay. So how you're going to communicate status, provide status to a technician, also a technician, let's say somebody makes it to service manager in your company, but that's as high as they're ever going to go. And they're only 45. Now what? Right? This is a question about status. How do I feel like I'm somebody important without overdoing it and creating an egomaniac, or underdoing it and making a guy feel like, is having a midlife crisis, basically. Okay. So those are the 7 that I'm doing now. As I launch my podcast, I'm just beginning to do the recordings now. They should be available sometime in September, and I'll put on this channel how to get those. But the goal of the podcast is for everybody to sit down from all parts of the country, all industry silos, from every angle, and talk about, from their point of view, what do they see as keys to making a happy life for a technician, and how do they do it? How do we get there? And my desire is to kind of aggregate that conversation into an ever-growing and improving model, so that I can provide to technicians the best thought out there on what they need to prioritize in order to maximize a happy life. Okay. So those are the 7 that I have right now. If you have any thoughts on this, you'd like to comment on below, or you'd like to reach out to me, or you'd like to get on the phone and talk about it even. In fact, if you'd like to be on the podcast, if you have some perspective into the world of a technician, it could be that you are a tech, it could be that you're an owner of an air conditioning company, it could be that you are a recruiter, it could be that you just have, maybe you sell boots and you'd like to talk about techs and their feet, whatever. I'm open, but you can reach out to me and we'll talk about whether it's a good fit for you to be on the podcast as well. So that's all. My name's Dr. John Sherk. This has been Brown Bag Lunch, and I hope you have a great week.